Well, good day, good morning, good evening, and welcome everybody to this free facilitation webinar, When is Online Better Than Face-to-Face? It's the 17th of June, 2020. My name is Martin Gilbraith. I'm very pleased to be here with you all today and to have all of you join me for this webinar, and also Stephen Barclay, SJ, and Anna Carr, who are my co-facilitators today. All of us convened and hosted by IAF Oceania and IAF Australia, the International Association of Facilitators. Let me invite Stephen, SJ, and Anna, first of all, just to say hello and introduce themselves.
Hi, it's Stephen here, coming from a place called Stradbroke Island, which is just off the coast of Brisbane in Queensland, Australia. And it's wonderful to see everybody from all over the world, so welcome.
Thank you. And Anna?
Hi, yeah, my name's Anna. Welcome everybody. As you can see, I'm joining from sunny Canberra, where I have 1, 2, 3, 4 layers on, and this morning it was 1 degree. In my study, it's also similar, so I've just put the heating on. Nice to see everyone from warm and cool climes.
Thank you very much. Brad and Megan, would you like to say a few words on behalf of IAF? Perhaps Megan first. We may need to unmute Megan. Are you muted, Megan? Yes, you are. There we go.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Megan Ross here, zooming in from Canberra as well. I'm not in Anna's cold study though, so that's good. Firstly, I want to apologise for having my video off tonight. I'm having problems with my internet connection, but I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. It's great to have that international connection, and thank you to Martin for facilitating us tonight. It's so good to have everybody here from around the world. It's fantastic. And thank you so much to the Australian team for organising, especially SJ. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And Brad, we'll need to unmute you as well.
Thank you very much, Martin, and welcome to everybody on behalf of IAF Australia. It's a pleasure to see all these wonderful faces from around the world. It's a beautiful sight. We want to start by acknowledging our Indigenous people, and we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we sit, certainly here in Australia, and we want to pay our respects to the leaders past, present and future, and look forward to all that, that Martin's going to take us through tonight in our conversation. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Thank you very much. So let me share my screen now to introduce you to the session, how we'll be spending our time together. Today we'll be asking the question together, when is online better than face-to-face? Many of us have been discovering a lot of sessions, events, activities we used to do face-to-face, we've been having to do online. And there are advantages and disadvantages, and now is an opportunity to explore some of those and ask ourselves, how can we make the best of both worlds? So the session is based on a format that we've been using within ICA UK over the last couple of months. ICA is the Institute of Cultural Affairs. It's an international non-profit organisation in about 40 countries, an originator of the top facilitation methodology, the technology of participation. And ICA UK has about 8 or 10 top facilitation trainers. I'm one of those, and between us we've been leading a series of focused conversation sessions online over the last few months to demonstrate the top focused conversation method in engaging groups to connect, share and learn with each other on a particular topic. So the format of the session is that I shall be leading a conversation with you with the support of Stephen and Anna on the topic of when is online better than face-to-face. We'll be using breakouts a little bit, we'll be using chat, we'll be inviting you to raise your hand to speak. And at the end of the conversation, we'll be sharing a few slides with you to introduce you to the top focus conversation method that we've used, and then sharing some sources of further information and support. As I say, I'm a top trainer of ICA UK, also currently chair of IAF England and Wales. Stephen and Anna are here representing IAF Australia, IAF Oceania. Stephen in particular is going to be playing the role of roving mic for this session, so he'll be keeping an eye if your hand is raised in the participant list and taking you in turn to unmute you to speak and then mute you again. And Anna will be playing the role in particular of chat monitor. She'll be keeping an eye on what gets typed in chat and responding if she can to questions, but particularly paying attention for comments there which are relevant to the conversation, to invite you to unmute your mic and speak, or just to voice your text comments herself. So I should say that we're not here as trainers to teach you facilitation or to teach you the top method. We're really here to facilitate and to demonstrate. So our aim is to enable you to have a conversation with each other about the topic. So with
Martin,
yes, please.
Just before, could you just explain again a few questions of how to change the number in the gallery from 25 to 48? Because I also couldn't do what you said, video settings.
Thank you. Yes, a few words about the Zoom tools that we'll be using to make sure that you'll all be able to participate fully. It's not essential to be able to see 49 people on your screen, but it's fun to see more faces since there's, what, 87 of us here already. First thing you need to know is to the top right of your video screen, you get to toggle between speaker view and gallery view. So if most of your screen is filled with my video image as speaker, switch to gallery view and then you typically get to see 25 people at once. If you want to extend that to 49, go to the bottom left of your screen. I'm assuming, by the way, that you're using a PC or a Mac. This can, where things are on your screen, can vary from device to device. But on my screen, bottom left, to the right of the stop video button, there's an up arrow. Select video settings, and then scroll down to the very bottom of the video settings. You see a setting that will enable you to allow up to 49 video images per gallery view. That may not apply if you're on a small device or with a small screen, or depending on what app or technology you're using.
Thank you.
The other thing the other thing that you do need to know is how to use the chat and how to use the participant list. So if you haven't already got those open, hover your mouse at the bottom of the screen and you should see the toolbar emerge. Click on participants to see who's here. And at the bottom of the participant list, you'll see a number of emoticons that you can use, including a raised hand function. And we'll be looking out for those raised hands, not for these ones in your video image. So if you want to speak, please do use the raised hand function over there. Otherwise, we may not see you if your video image is not among the 25 or 49 that we have in front of us. Also, click on the chat. I see lots of you have done that already. And as I say, please do use the Zoom chat to chat with each other and respond to questions there. Are there any other quick questions, or all clear, ready to go? What we're going to do first of all is to invite you all to introduce yourselves to each other a little bit. I'm going to create breakout rooms and invite you to go into breakout rooms of 3 or 4 participants each. And I'm just going to give you 4 minutes in breakout rooms to say hello, introduce yourselves, share anything you like about yourself, your experience, your interest in the topic, and then we'll come back into main session and share something verbally about that. So you're going to go automatically into breakout rooms. The breakout rooms will close automatically after 4 minutes, and then you'll get 10 seconds to return to the main room. Enjoy. And there they go. And welcome back. Here you all come. How were your breakouts? Did you meet somebody interesting? Please give us a a thumbs up in the reaction at the bottom of the screen if you had an interesting little conversation there. I know it was brief. That's lovely to see. Fantastic. Do use the chat. Oh, excellent. That's great. Do use the chat here in the main room to share something about who you met and the conversation you had, if you like, and also to introduce yourselves if you haven't already. And we're going to move on to the first question of our focus conversation. In order to lead us in this conversation about when is online better than face-to-face, I'll be posing a series of questions to you. And the first question, I'm going to invite you to share your answers in the chat. And the question is, what kind of events have you experienced, first face-to-face and now online? So obviously, in order to compare between online and face-to-face, we need to think of events that we've experienced in both environments. So please use the chat to type some examples of any kinds of events. I'm guessing maybe business meetings, team meetings, facilitated events for many of you. But think not only of work events, think also of social volunteering, maybe church services, maybe yoga nights, I don't know, choir practice, anything at all. Lots of coaching, I see. There is yoga among them, comedy festival. Wow, the chat is moving fast. That's always exciting. Birthday parties.
I love family baking.
Yes, exactly. SJ and Anna, please do share with me in reading some of what's going on in the chat.
Services for various and different churches.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Is there anything particular? Who thinks that they've got the most unusual example? Please raise your hand if you think you've experienced something online and face-to-face that maybe nobody else has. Or if you've read one that you're really curious about, please let us know. Aileen, please go ahead. SJ, if you could unmute Aileen, and then Helen. I've got it. Aileen, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello there. Lovely to be here. What I would like to share is my niece was due to have a baby, and you know, everyone was sort of working out how they're going to be there. Some of them live in Indonesia, some of them live in Spain, family-wise, and she was in London, in Harrow. Sorry, in the UK, in Harrow. So in the end, of course, you know, we just forgot all the plans about getting to the UK, and you know, shared the first day of baby.
Wow.
On a virtual call. So that was very.
Thank you.
Was so lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Very different. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Helen Bradley, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. Mine's a little less exciting, I guess. And I only raise my hand because it depends which group you're in, but quite often when I say I'm doing Feldenkrais, people say Felden what? But I was actually in an online workshop the other day and nearly everybody did Feldenkrais, so I don't know if you find it unusual or not, but for those who don't know it, it's a fantastic system of inquiry of your body and what's the most effortless and painless way for it to move. So we were all lying on our mats separately, I guess a bit like people doing yoga, but it was just the novelty of the Feldenkrais online. I didn't think it would be possible.
Thank you.
But it's great.
Thank you. And Ruth Lambert. I think you can unmute yourself now, Ruth. Are you there, Ruth?
She's still muted.
Oh, there you go.
No, here I am. Here I am. What we can do online, fantastically, is planning a world future.
And have you done that?
By meeting up with people from everywhere and thinking big.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Well, we've got a ton of examples in there in the chat, so I want you to bear in mind all of those, please, and ask yourselves next, thinking back to all of those experiences, when were you disappointed, or for that matter, when were you pleasantly surprised, by the differences. So think of what it was like in all of those examples. And I'm going to put you back into breakout rooms. I'm going to give you a little bit longer this time. We're going to have 12 minutes in breakout rooms this time. Again, I'm going to move you directly into groups, and they should be different groups, so that'll be interesting. You have a chance to introduce yourself first. And remember this question, I'll send it, I'll broadcast it to the breakout rooms as well, but I've just put it in the chat just now. When were you disappointed, or when were you pleasantly surprised by the difference in online versus face-to-face in some of these examples that you've been sharing? Okay, so I'm going to send you to breakout rooms now. Enjoy. And welcome back as you start returning. Please give me a thumbs up again in using the reactions at the bottom of the screen if you had a good conversation there. Was that valuable? Lovely. Fantastic. Welcome back, everybody. So we'd love to hear some stories, a few of those stories that you were sharing in breakout groups there. I was asking you to share stories, brief stories of your experience. When were you disappointed or pleasantly surprised by the difference between online and face-to-face? So please raise your hand if you'd like to speak, if you told a story or heard a story, if you have permission to share it, of course. And Stephen, SJ, let me invite you, please, to select somebody with their hand raised from the participant list and invite them to speak. And Anna, please do let me know if you read anything in the chat. We'd love to see your stories in the chat as well. I should say, by the way, well, I did say at the beginning before we started, but if you didn't hear it, I shall be documenting the chat and sharing that afterwards. So part of the purpose of the text chat is for you to communicate with each other during the session without speaking, but the other purpose of the chat is to harvest some of your stories and some of your insights. So please do share stories and insights and questions there as well. And then I'll be asking Anna to keep an eye on those and let us know if any would be interesting for us to hear right now during the session. I see Eric has his hand raised.
Eric.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, so
thanks.
Unmuted.
Yes, my team member encouraged me to share this story. In the open space, in the Zoom, we put everyone have the co-host authority. And when the meeting starts, we use the Google document, just like an open space. In the marking space, they will write the A1 topic, A2 topic. So all the topic was listed on the Google document. And the host can change the breakout room name to the topic. So they can see the topic on the breakout room title. And we start the meeting. So because everyone is co-host, so everyone can choose which topic they want to join, just like in the real open space.
So that was a pleasant surprise, was it?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a very good story. Thank you. I'm complete.
Brilliant. Thank you. Who's next? Stephen.
We've got John from Sydney.
Thank you, John.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Thanks, Stephen. Hi, Martin. Good to see you. The one thing that I particularly noticed is between face-to-face and virtual is that on virtual you seem to lose a lot of the banter that you get and the toing and froing, and so natural flow of conversation and little insights that people throw in, because we have this technology that we have to now wait until somebody's finished before we speak. It's this simplex technology which kind of stilts that natural flow. So a bit of trust and rapport building tends to, for me anyway, needs a little bit of extra work.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Stephen?
Anastasia?
Sure, that's me. Thank you very much, first of all, for mastering today the facilitation and showing to myself as a beginner facilitator how it's done. So what I have experienced in breakout room with Heather and Brad is something brand new to me. We literally had a focused conversation. So yet it was extremely insightful, but Brad managed to make it so conversational Yet we spoke about social impact of disappointments, social take it like 360 degree on how we can be happy about today's virtual facilitation, as well as not happy very much. And to point out two of them is the happiest moment is to still be able to connect with a massive amount of the people, and to have equal platform for all ages and nationalities to communicate with each other, no matter how good you are with the techie thing. And on another hand, again, some things in the meeting, some points might be missed, unfortunately, and it needs more time to dive into the topic or result you wish to achieve at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic.
I tried to be short.
Anna, did you spot anything else in the chat that would be interesting to hear or to read?
Yeah, there's a wonderful experience that Rhonda has about her partnering with her colleague in Switzerland and their ability to form really deep connections in breakout rooms. And that's been reflected in something else I've seen around people who are actually using play. So using the box here to actually do push-ups. So you can get physical facilitation going, you know, chin-ups. And having a lot more fun with the space that you have. But on the other side, some of the digital exclusion around where people don't have the bandwidth or actually can't connect, that does take some of the joy out of facilitating online. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So let me ask you now, what does this tell us? What can we learn about when online is better than face-to-face? I'll give you just one example. I had a client I worked with a few weeks ago who told me that, well, we did an online forum for European leaders of this international NGO over 3 days, 5 sessions, 110 people. Usually they do this face-to-face for a weekend. And usually, apparently, they spend a lot of time in a big plenary room with people sitting in rows of seats looking at a stage, being spoken to. And raising their hand to speak. And guess what? This time they spent most of their time in breakout rooms of 3 or 4, and they made connections that they never thought possible. So they found it much more engaging than usual. What's been your experience from the stories that you've shared and from the insights you were just getting out of those conversations? Please type in the chat and raise your hand if you'd like to speak. What can we learn about when online is even better than face-to-face? Who's first? Please don't be shy. We want to hear voices. Julia.
We've got Julia.
Thanks, Stephen. Can you unmute yourself, Julia?
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Thanks. And I'd just like to echo, thanks for modelling, you and your co-facilitators modelling how to do this. It's a great learning experience just watching and participating. For me, one of the things that I really like about it is that it forces you to try and do more in less time. So it's that sort of Parkinson's principle. I think it is Parkinson's law that says that the task will fit the space you give it. So if you say to your client, well, you don't have half a day, you've really got 90 minutes, it does sort of force you to try and achieve as much in a shorter space of time, which I really like.
Thank you. Yes, I've had that feedback too. Yes, who's next? Enrico?
Can I just tell people if they're having trouble deciding, working out how to participate, if you just go to the participants list and it will have an option, an arrow, and you just click on that arrow and say, raise your hand.
Thank you. Enrico, I think you are, now you're unmuted, please go ahead.
Okay, cool. I think one definite space where it's better is where there's distance or schedules involved. So not like this, even before COVID, when we had clients that couldn't come on site, or we had distributed teams. Right. So being able to have this iron out, but I kind of want to balance it out with something on the other side, and it's if preparation is important in the room, it's paramount when we are remote. And yes, it's true that we cannot plan every single thing, but there's a few more things. I like that in the invite, Martin, you asked about the speed check. There's more involve other things that we need to like think about.
Right.
And I think with this COVID event, we are all exposed to that reality. So this, I see it as an enabling constraint, this virus, to allow us to move even further out into our online experience, collective online experience.
Thank you. Who's next, Stephen?
Shelley.
Hi, Shelley. Go ahead.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
I think for me, the challenges are around, the first thing is the accessibility to a global environment, that instantly, especially when I'm talking about diversity.
Right.
But more challenging is when you put those nationalities and different groups together, how you read the cross-cultural communication, body language and pitch and tone and volume, and having to adjust to that. And it really shows you that when someone's in the room, you can make assumptions about them. I find by screen, that really makes me listen without assumptions. So I'm so focused on the face and reading it, rather than, oh, well, they're not paying attention or whatever, what I call the yama yama in my head. There's no time for the yama yama in my head because I'm looking.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that's interesting. I've heard a lot of people tell me, oh, but you just can't read body language the same way online as you can face to face. Well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it will challenge your assumptions. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Thank you. One or two others. Who's next, Stephen?
We've got Jacinta.
Oh, good. You can hear me. Sorry,
yes.
It said host is not allowing me to unmute myself. Hello, thanks. I asked about, got 200 comments back when I asked my network, what's your one beef? That's Australians saying for what do you hate about online meetings and workshops, and what do you like? And there are a lot of dislikes, but really interestingly, the three most positive things were people loved exploring new technology, which seems odd, and people appreciated the flexibility, not having to travel. And I've heard about that with facilitating community engagement groups. So a mate of mine said that the farmer could literally just walk in off the farm and straight to the Zoom instead of having to travel an hour into town for a meeting that went all night. So people appreciate the flexibility and exploring new technology. They also said inclusivity, but I see a flip side to that because there's a lot of digital discrimination. So surprised by the positives. That might be, I think, was your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're going to take one or two other comments, and I'm going to ask Anna also to let us know if there's anything in the chat we might be interested to hear about, in case we've missed it. But I'm also going to put my final question into the chat and invite you to respond to that. When we get to choose again, how can we make the best of both worlds, both face-to-face and online? What's one thing that you will try to remember, one thing that you will try to remember to do in order to choose wisely when we get to choose again? So please respond to that in the chat. Yes, Stephen.
So we've got Adrian. You're unmuted there, Adrian.
Hi, Adrian.
Hello. Stephen, thank you for unmuting me. What was my purpose for allowing to speak to you all as a beautiful congregation of people in the Church of Facilitation today?
You had raised your hand to...
Oh, yes, sorry. Yeah, that's right. About something that struck me about the benefits of doing it online. Safety. Because it may just be me who's lucky like this, but I have led sessions before where fights have broken out between people because the issues have become so contentious, and I've had to referee between them and actually, have to play angry parent to tell people to go to their rooms to stop things getting more violent between people.
Thank you. There can be security issues online, can't there? But at least they're not physical security issues in the way they are when you're physically in one place. Yeah, who's next?
There's a comment there about it being safer to raise disagreements in that same space. So where where you might want to avoid the confront in person to person or face to face, it's actually safe to disagree perhaps more vehemently, or to create conditions under which more and different kinds of points of view are raised.
Thank you. That's interesting. Yes. What about the final question? When we get to choose again, how will you choose?
We just had one more. So this is the last one, and this is Geeta.
Thank you.
Hi, Martin. Thanks. So one is, I feel it pushes our creativity a little bit more to sort of get more convinced in the topic that we're going to present. So our conviction in presenting what we are going to do increases in online, because it's difficult to hold the attention. In in-person session, you don't have the liberty to run away, but online you can do that. So I think it pushes your creativity a bit more when it's online. The other thing is, it's also allowing us to experiment and get small wins first before we move to bigger sessions. So creating a 1.5 hour session or a 2 hour session is much easier to do than planning for a whole day. So it gives us smaller experiments, I feel, doing online.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you. Well, please do continue to share your insights in the chat of how you will choose when you get to choose, again, between online and face-to-face. And while you do that, let me share my screen and just take a few minutes now to talk you through the top focus conversation method, which was the structure for this conversation. So I'm sure some of you are familiar with this. Some of you will at least come across it. The focus conversation method is one of the methods, the foundational method of ICA's technology of participation methodology. And it's built on a 4-level model of human experience, a model of how we as human beings experience life. The model suggests that all of us, all of the time, the first level of our experience is what we call the objective level. So our sensory perception. Through our senses of sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell, we become aware that we're alive, and we become aware of what's going on around us and within us. And it's based on that sensory perception that we have some kind of an emotional or intuitive reaction or response, what we call the reflective level, or the level of the heart. Also includes associations, where we might be reminded of something. The model says that when we make sense of our experience and begin to interpret what's going on and ideas form, what we call the interpretive level, that is based on both our sensory perception and also our emotional intuitive response. And when we actually draw conclusions or come to any kind of resolution, decision, or action, that final conclusion is based on all 3 of the preceding levels. The model says that we're all going through this all of the time, and that very often we're unaware of it. It happens subconsciously. And the purpose of the model, or using the model in facilitation, is to bring some transparency and some discipline to the individual process and the group process, in order to take a whole group together through all 4 of these levels in turn, in order that each individual can better understand their own process and each other's process, and in order that the group can have a shared process where they cover all the bases, if you like, and reach a robust, meaningful conclusion, and go from a surface to a more in-depth understanding of a topic or a question. It's also important because different people and different cultures are stronger and more comfortable at one level than another. You may find yourself the kind of person who's interested in facts and data and makes lots of lists, or you might find yourself as the kind of person who likes to express themselves from the heart, or the kind of person who likes just to get on and do it. So one of the advantages of the model is that it helps everybody contribute to their strength and helps everybody to be included. The way the model is applied to the focused conversation method is essentially to draft a series of questions to take the group together through the 4 levels. In order to know what questions to ask, of course, you have to have a clear topic, and you have to have clear aims for the conversation. What do you want to achieve by having the conversation? And then a series of questions to take you through the 4 levels. In this case, we just essentially had 4 questions, 1 for each level. We began at the objective level by sharing something of our experience of the topic, and in particular, what kind of events do we have experience of that we've experienced first face-to-face and now in online. Of course, that's important to know what experience we're basing our comparisons on. Our second question, the reflective level question, was trying to get a sense of your emotional reaction, your emotional response. When were you disappointed or pleasantly surprised? And particularly asking you what was going on at that time to help you identify what was the source of your disappointment or surprise. What was the source of your reflective level response? The third question, the interpretive one in this case, was what can we learn from our experience and our reactions about when online is better? And finally, to get us towards decisional, when we get to choose again, how can we make the best of both worlds? Now, this model works very well for a small conversation of 6, 8, 10, maybe up to 20 people face to face. As you've seen, it can work with a large group as well, although in that case, you probably need some sort of technology or some sort of mechanism to enable people to speak in small groups. If we were face-to-face, we'd probably be at a large number of small tables in a big meeting room or ballroom, and you'd be having conversations at tables and then sharing in plenary. In this case, we used the breakout groups at the reflective level when I was asking you to share stories of your reactions, and then the rest of it in plenary using chat as well as voice. So that's the focused conversation method. As I say, it's one of several methods of ICA's technology of participation. The other core ones you'll see there on the right, and you'll see the values there underpinning the whole of the methodology as well. In terms of resources, next steps, there's a book by ICA Associates in Canada, actually 2 books on the focused conversation method. The first is subtitled 100 Ways to Access Group Wisdom in the Workplace, and it includes 100 sample conversations designed for workplace contexts. There's another book called The Art of Focused Conversation for Schools, which is tailored specifically for use in educational contexts. And beneath that as well, you'll see a link also to Getting to the Bottom of Top. That's a book on the underpinning theory and philosophy of ICA's technology of participation. There are also training courses. The focused conversation method is covered in 1 day of the 2-day face-to-face group facilitation methods course, which is offered around the world. There is also an online version of that. There's actually one starting next week on Monday 22nd with a few places available if you're quick. That takes place over 6 2-hour sessions over 2 weeks. You'll also see links further down to further blog posts and training from myself and from ICA worldwide and also from IAF worldwide. Before we close, just a word or two about next steps as well. I'm grateful for ICA.
Just before we do that,
yes,
Martin, there was one comment from Adrian that he felt that this looked a little bit like CBT.
CBT, tell us what that is, Adrian. I'm not familiar with the acronym.
I think cognitive behavioral therapy, maybe.
Oh, okay, yes.
Adrian, if you raise your digital hand, it'll be easy to find you amongst the 90 odd people. There we go.
So my usual response to that is that yes, it probably is similar. And my experience of this model is that anytime I come across any other, especially 4-level models, but any other models of how people think, how people learn, how they behave, my experience is that they do map very well onto this model, which is not to say that they necessarily came from the same theoretical or intellectual source, but it's to say there's nothing under the sun. And what this is telling us is that there is something fundamentally true. There is some fundamental truth to these models. Another good example is Kolb's learning cycle, Kolb's model of how adults learn, which is something to do with experience, reflection, I can't remember what they're called, interpretation and practice or something like that. Let's take a few more questions in the final minutes, but before we do, I believe we have 1 or 2 of the facilitators of the next IAF Oceania meetup with us today. Stephen, and I think, I'm not sure if Karen is with us as well, but maybe Steve Estre, you can unmute Stephen at least to say a few words about the next Australia meetup.
Well, and my colleague Karen Miller-Bellerman is here with us tonight as well, and together we're going to be running this session and invite everyone to participate and join with us on discovering how we can connect with organisations in the whole post-COVID-19. Now, it's using a Gestalt framework and Gestalt thinking and principles, and we're looking forward to sharing that with everyone.
Thank you very much indeed. I do not have another free facilitation webinar scheduled just yet, but there will be one, I hope, in July. I'm talking with colleagues of IAF Italy. I'm not sure if they're here today, but I'm talking with colleagues of IAF Italy about putting on a 90-minute session demonstrating the use of the ORID model and top facilitation in conjunction with liberating structures methodologies. So if you're interested in either or both of those and how to use them together, watch out for that. So we've got a few more minutes. We've got 4 more minutes before we do to close. If anybody has any other questions or reflections on the session, please do share them in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to speak. I'm also going to launch a poll, and as you're doing that, I'd like you to respond to the poll to tell us how you rate this session. Sorry, was that Anna telling me?
There's a question in the chat about the how do people find out about the Gestalt session, Stephen? Maybe
thank you. Could you put a link in the chat?
Put a link in the chat for Stephen McGuinness. Thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions or reflections, please do type in the chat or raise your hand. We'd love to hear them.
Whilst that's happening, we will be sending out to all of those people that have attended today's workshop, we will send out the details, plus to all of our IAF members in Oceania and contacts and all of the different Facebook groups that we use this time to promote this particular event.
Thank you. Yes, and I shall be sharing the recording and the edited chat transcript, and also the slides that I shared. All of that will be available also on my website by tomorrow and shared to everybody that registered.
A few people mentioned they couldn't submit the poll. I couldn't answer it either, but obviously maybe that's because I'm co-host.
Yes, hosts and co-hosts don't get to respond to the poll. If others also were not able to respond to the poll, it could be because of the device you're using. Particularly if you're on a tablet or a phone, it may not appear. Yeah, I see Susan's nodding. That could well be the reason.
And there's one question from Anastasia who has her hand raised.
Please go ahead, Anastasia. I think you can unmute now.
Yeah, we can also unmute ourselves. That's right. So I just want to let you know, congratulate you actually on making it happen within an hour, which is a real big deal because nobody managed as of now for all the sessions I've ever attended. And I think it's very important to have a co-host in all the meetings above 10 people. I think it's extremely helpful. That keeps dynamics of the conversation very well. So thank you all. Amazing teamwork and just on time. Apparently facilitators can really make it even virtually within an hour.
Thank you very much indeed. I do take timing very seriously, and because I've invited you here for an hour, I am going to close the session now. However, I don't have to rush off immediately. If anybody would like to stay and hang out with each other and with me, I can certainly hang out for another 10 minutes or so. So do feel free to stay. Do look out for us, connect with us online with IAF Oceania and with me via my blog and social media. And hope to see you again. Thank you all very much indeed. And thank you to Anna and Stephen, IAF Oceania and IAF Australia for the invitation. Bye for now.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone for joining us from wherever you are in the world, and we really look forward to seeing you again at future IAF events, whether it's here in Oceania or in any of our regions throughout the world.
Thank you.